Welcome to the Family Beacon podcast from Minnesota Family Council with hosts Grace Evans and Moses BRATRUD. Stay informed on the top stories on life, family, and religious freedom. Get the facts, stand for truth. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Family Beacon podcast. I'm Grace Evans, and I'm here with Moses BRATRUD. Thanks for tuning in today. We are so grateful that you're here and listening or watching on YouTube. We just wanted to say a quick reminder before jumping into our content today that it really does help us beat the algorithm if you leave reviews on Apple Podcasts. That's a really good way for us to get more listens and spread the word about the Family Beacon and everything we talk about. So if you like what you hear, please go ahead and leave a review and give us 5 stars on Apple. That would mean a lot. And if you're watching on YouTube, give it a like, comment something. It helps us. So that being said, if you consider doing that, we'd really appreciate it. Today, we are going to be talking about the implications of the new Texas abortion law that everyone's talking about. This is the first law in 50 years to effectively ban abortion in early pregnancy. So this is huge. The law definitely was facing an uncertain future last week when we talked about it, but now we're here to talk about it in more depth and talk about the reaction it's facing here in Minnesota, but also nationwide. So first, we just want to kick it off with what this bill is and what it's not, because there's a lot of misconceptions floating around about this bill. Am I right, Moses?
Right, yeah. So when we talked about this bill last week, it almost seemed like the Supreme Court was just going to throw it out that day.
Mm-hmm.
So we filmed before the Supreme Court announced during the middle of the night that they had rejected the emergency challenge and allowed the bill to go into effect. So it's a brave new world because this is the first time in 50 years of abortion law in the United States that a law regulating abortion and early pregnancy to this extent has been allowed to go into effect at all, and to my knowledge. And the reason that it's working, although it could very quickly face legal challenges in the future. Its future is still in doubt. But the reason it's working right now is because it's actually not a ban on abortion. If you read the bill, It doesn't say abortion shall be illegal. However, it opens up clinics and those who are providing abortions. It opens them up to liability and to civil liability to be sued, essentially.
Yeah, so private citizens can go and sue abortion providers or people aiding and abetting the abortion industry.
Right, and I think one misconception, right, Grace, is that women who are seeking an abortion are just going to get slapped with a lawsuit.
Right, or
which
that
obviously
rapists could go and sue women who are seeking abortion.
Yeah, and
true.
That's not true. The language of the bill makes clear that the people who are vulnerable to be sued under this legislation are simply those aiding and abetting in an abortion, specifically doctors who might perform an abortion, clinic nurses, clinic staff who are scheduling abortion, basically people who just are on the side of providing the abortion.
Right.
So that's who is being targeted by this, and I think the real battle is not in this case is not really over the legality of abortion. This bill did not overturn Roe v. Wade, despite what some people are talking about. Ultimately, this is a preview of the really big abortion case that we're going to see. Dobbs v. Jackson, that's right. So Dobbs v. Jackson is a challenge that the Supreme Court will hear this fall, maybe November. They'll have oral arguments, although the decision won't be released probably until early next summer. But that's Mississippi's abortion law saying abortion is straight up illegal after 15 weeks. And currently the law of the land under Roe v. Wade and the subsequent abortion cases in this country is that abortion cannot be regulated or limited in any way before viability. And that's very determined in a very... what's the word I want?
Obscure.
Yeah,
because it's about 20 to 21 weeks right now. But as science, advances.
Well, the law currently says 24 weeks.
24. Okay.
Yeah.
But there have been babies who have been able to survive outside the womb around 2021. But viability constantly is coming back, because the weeks are constantly being moved back as we have advancements in technology. And so Moses is right; it's very obscure because now children can survive outside the womb much earlier than they could even 70 years ago or even 50 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah, so Roe v. Wade is antiquated. It's relying on this outdated conception of viability.
Mm-hmm.
It's relying on these old notions that the fetus wasn't alive until you could feel it move.
So, Moses, obviously, as Christians, we are striving to make abortion both illegal and unthinkable from the very moment of conception. And that isn't what this law does. So some conservative Christians are arguing that this isn't a law to celebrate, that we shouldn't celebrate this heartbeat ban here in Texas because abortion is still legal under it. It's not an abortion ban. It just limits abortions. So how should we think about that?
So the facts on the ground are that with the effect of this law is that Planned Parenthood is ceasing to schedule abortions in Texas after 6 weeks, and that started on September 1st. 80 to 90% of abortions happen after that date. So we're talking about something that, at a stroke, bans 80 to 90% of abortions in Texas. Yeah, so we need to distinguish between not calling this an ultimate victory, because it's certainly not. I mean, first of all, it's just one state.
Yeah, the fight is not over.
The fight is not over, but let's just talk about the babies who are now already too far along in gestation to be aborted under this Texas law, who will be born alive sometime early next year, who will be able to live and have a wonderful life as Americans because of this law. So I think, yeah, there are some negative Nancys on the internet who are saying this is some kind of honestly, I think you can kind of tell who's pro-life and who's just posturing based on whether they actually support laws that actually keep babies alive. Sorry, if you're not happy about this, then are you really happy when babies get saved? Now, with that being said, this is not the real ultimate battle over Roe v. Wade. Roe v. Wade is still the law of the land. We need to change that right now. The real battle will be the Dobbs v. Jackson. Jinx padlock, no backs. The Dobbs v. Jackson support.
You should just buy me a Coke.
Is that
the real battle? The real battle is coming. But we should still see this as a win. Even though not every single baby in Texas will be saved, so many lives are going to be saved under this. So it is still something to celebrate, and we should still recognize that the battle is not over yet. So we need to keep pushing onwards.
Yeah. So what we could see with Dobbs v. Jackson is the Supreme Court could say that you can regulate abortions before fetal viability, which is defined as 24 weeks, even though babies can survive earlier than that in some cases. So that's the Roe standard. It's old, it's outdated, it doesn't reflect the consensus that life begins at conception. The Dobbs v. Jackson case, that'll be argued before the Supreme Court this fall, probably November, and then we'll see an actual decision probably early next summer. Hard to predict at this point. So that would be a much bigger battle, because that would, first of all, apply to the whole country.
Yeah.
And
we will talk about that on the podcast. We will get we'll get Renee Carlson on here to talk about that and the implications of that.
Renee Carlson is she's the attorney who works for our True North Legal Initiative of Minnesota Family Institute.
We'll have it on the screen.
And she is an incredible resource, an incredibly smart attorney who has filed a brief at the Supreme Court for the Dobbs v. Jackson case. So she knows this better than probably most anybody in Minnesota. I want to talk, Grace, about the situation here in Minnesota.
Yeah, what are the implications?
Yeah, so this is a Texas bill, so it doesn't affect Minnesota, sadly. And we are seeing other red states suddenly be like, hey, we can do this.
Yeah.
And that's amazing. Minnesota is not going to be first in line to do that, unfortunately. Minnesota has some really draconian abortion laws that really make it hard to prevent abortions from taking place. There's a Minnesota Supreme Court case called Doe v. Gomez that some of you are familiar with that basically says that it's a constitutional right in Minnesota to have a government-funded abortion. That is false. There's nothing in the Minnesota Constitution that says that, of course. And so Minnesota, like the Star Tribune, Minnesota's largest newspaper, they covered this in various ways, of course, over the past week. And I just, I think it's hilarious. Minnesota braces for influx of out-of-state abortion patients. And that's just so sad to me that that like if other states start to protect life in the womb, that Minnesota would still be this
stronghold.
We would be an abortion mecca, for
Right.
people in other states, and
Right.
that makes me sick. We need to work hard so that like people don't see Minnesota as like the last state in the nation that would ever overturn Roe v. Wade and allow protections of life in the womb, because that's not true. We are going to first of all, like if you look at opinion polls, Minnesotans don't support unlimited abortion. That's fictional.
Right.
And it looks bad because one of our senators, I think we're the only state in the United States with one of our senators, Senator Tina Smith, is a former Planned Parenthood vice president. And that's who former Governor Dayton picked to be our senator, and then she won election on her own right. And that's just, it's just horrifying. Like we're past the political consensus. Most Americans don't support, for example, late-term abortion. That's just not something that many Americans support. But Planned Parenthood wants to provide abortion all the way as late as they can.
For any reason, at any time, fully taxpayer funded.
Yep, and that's what Tina Smith supports. And she is, at this moment, the junior senator from the state of Minnesota. So we need a lot of change on the ground. And my favorite thing coming out of Minnesota this week is another opinion piece in the Star Tribune called "Is an American Taliban Rising?"
Disgusting.
Yeah. Now you may think that maybe he's the author John M. Crisp is referring to someone who's taking violent action against something or other in the way that the Taliban, they are a military
what's he
terrorist fighting force. But yeah, Grace, I'll tell you what he's referring to. He's referring to people who want to protect life in the womb. He is literally
the American
comparing
Taliban, apparently.
Yeah, the pro-lifers. Grace and I are the American Taliban, and we're coming to ban the abortions, and it's just like,
honestly, that's so rude towards women, because women in the Taliban that are under Taliban control right now are being raped, and their husbands are being killed. They do not have legal protections. They can't even leave the house without a male guardian. They can't be educated. He's comparing that wicked regime to pro-lifers trying to save life and to protect women, because abortion hurts women. It hurts them physically. Yes. He's saying that what we're fighting for is the equivalent of what the Taliban is doing to women.
And it's just like, here's a quote. "Of course, we don't cane people in our country like the Taliban, but if you find someone who thinks it might not be a bad idea, he's probably a Republican." I have never heard of anyone who wants to institute like some kind of whipping or beating as some kind of criminal punishment. That's absurd. And just like, talk about losing the plot, okay? There are the most vulnerable people in the world and in our country are people in the womb who are not considered by our legal system to have rights at all. We are fighting for the rights of the defenseless. Yeah. We are fighting for the rights of the preborn, and we are fighting for the welfare of their mothers.
Exactly.
And it is such a lie to call that. It is such a bad faith argument to say that any pro-lifers are coming from a place of Taliban-like control your everything that you do. it makes me mad.
And that's a really good point, because the pro-life movement, the pro-abortion movement is fighting for themselves, so to speak. They're fighting for women to have the right, quote unquote, to do whatever they want with their body and with an unborn baby's body. But the pro-life movement is fighting for those that can't fight for themselves. We're not fighting for ourselves. Like, I'm not fighting for, I don't get anything out of this. Moses doesn't get anything out of this other than we're fighting for the truth.
Right.
And so that's a very interesting just thing to think about. We're fighting for those who literally do not have a voice.
Right. And that's just like such a beautiful vision we have for the future of America, where people are recognized to have the right to life from the moment they are conceived, because they're created in the image of God. And if you think that's like calling that some kind of Taliban terrorist scheme, says more about you than me. Okay, exactly. That's all I'm saying. Grace. Yeah. We have a lot. Everyone feels that they have to comment on this bill. Right. It's creating a huge stir. Tell us about some of the other people who are supporting this bill at the national level.
So the Satanists are also supporting this bill. And
wonderful.
I know this can make us feel uncomfortable because a lot of people don't want to talk about Satanists, but we do need to talk about it because if you're a Christian and you're on the side of the Satanists, then you need to ask yourself why you're siding with what the Satanists are siding with.
Grace, just a second. Read what the headline was
that
article. I just thought this was so...
This is the article. This is run by Salon.com. Why Satanists may be the last, best hope to save abortion rights in Texas.
Lord Jesus Christ, come quickly. That is just so horrifying.
So this is a non-theistic, right, meaning they don't believe in God, organization that's headquartered in Salem, Massachusetts, and they joined the legal fray this week by sending a letter to the U.S. Food and Drug Administration demanding access to abortion pills for its members. This group has established an abortion ritual. And
a satanic abortion ritual.
Yes, and they are attempting to use the Religious Freedom Restoration Act to argue that the members of the satanic cult should be allowed access to abortion drugs for religious purposes for any reason whatsoever. So their main slogan is "Thyself is thy master," meaning that whatever you think is right, whatever you want is right. This is a direct quote from their website because I did some digging. They say, "The satanic abortion ritual provides spiritual comfort and affirms bodily autonomy, self-worth, and freedom from coercive forces with the affirmation of their 7 tenets. The ritual is not intended to convince a person to have an abortion. Instead, it sanctifies the abortion process by instilling confidence and protecting bodily rights when undergoing the safe and scientific procedure."
Unreal.
There are so many things wrong with that. I'm just going to talk about a few. Number one, this satanic abortion ritual, apparently, this group claims to affirm bodily autonomy and to be on the side of science. One of their tenets literally says that beliefs should conform to one's best scientific understanding of the world, and one should take care never to distort scientific facts to fit one's belief. Now, okay, so let's take that for a minute. They claim to uphold bodily autonomy, and they claim to uphold science. 2 strikes against them. They don't do either of those things. 1, bodily autonomy begins in the womb. The baby's body is not your body. I'll say that again. The baby's body is not your body because life begins in conception. From the moment of conception, a baby has its own unique DNA. A baby has a brain that's separate from its mom. It has a heart that's separate from its mom. The baby is not the mother's body. So it does not affirm bodily autonomy. And what they're standing behind doesn't. And it also doesn't affirm science. Science states that life begins at conception. So they don't affirm science.
Right.
And then also, it says that they state that it sanctifies the abortion process. You cannot, sanctify means to make holy. You cannot make holy the murder of the innocent.
And actually, Satanists can't make anything holy.
Right, they can't because that would make Satan's
it would require
skin crawl.
them to believe in something holy instead of something unholy.
Right, and then the last thing I just want to rant on here is they say that undergoing an abortion is safe. A safe and scientific procedure. There's nothing safe or scientific about it because it's in every single successful abortion, a human dies,
right.
the preborn baby. And in most abortions, there are complications for women. Women are more likely to hemorrhage.
Physical or emotional.
Physical or emotional because women will hemorrhage. They can lose lots of blood. Sometimes they need to be rushed to the hospital because they've lost too much blood because abortion is not a natural procedure. Women are literally made to give birth.
If you follow a pro-life action group, like our friends at Pro-Life Action Ministries, for example, they'll post fairly frequently about the ambulance coming to the back door of Planned Parenthood St. Paul. Why is that happening? Because complications from abortion are not rare.
No, they're the normal. Because again, it's not natural. Your body was made. Women's bodies were made to give birth. They were not made to have their child prematurely ripped from them. It's not normal.
Amen.
And yeah, depression rates skyrocket. Your chances of infertility skyrocket. There's so much that abortion does to hurt women. So it's not safe. So these Satanists are citing religious freedom as the reason that they should have unlimited access to abortion. And so they say this on their website. They say, "We take legal action to make sure Satanists receive the same treatment as people of other faiths." And so what they're citing here is they're actually citing the Hobby Lobby versus Burwell decision. That was a landmark decision back in 2014. So
that's just very very ironic.
Right, which is ironic because, so I was a baby back in 2014.
She wasn't like literally a baby.
7 years ago.
She has a tendency to exaggerate.
Anyways, this was about 7 years ago, but basically what happened there was Hobby Lobby got sued by some people because they, under the Obamacare Act, you were required to provide contraceptive care in your health care for employees, and they didn't want to because they were a religious organization. So they were against birth control. And they won that case, actually. And so these Satanists actually say, Hobby Lobby won this case, therefore we should use our religious freedom, we should have full access to abortion so that we can perform these abortion rituals because of our religion. Now, what's the difference? What's our argument there? Yes, you are free in America to practice your religion, how you please, as long as you are not hurting other people or murdering other people. So in America, you can practice your religion. You have that right as long as you aren't killing people. And so right now, the Hobby Lobby thing, that doesn't kill anyone. That's a specific religious freedom that they're free to exercise. But this would enable them to kill another person. So there is a difference there.
There is a massive difference between the Supreme Court saying that a company founded and owned by religious people with a sincere, constitutionally protected objection to birth control, something which is a controversial social issue in this country, and like that would be equivalent to someone saying, no, you need to allow me to have an abortion, something which ends a life, as you say, that there is no equivalency there.
No. And so that's their argument. I want to wrap up on this point because we don't need to belabor the Satanist point, but I want to close this section just by stating that at root, as Christians, we need to remember that this is just a example that there is a constant war between the woman and the serpent. This began in the garden, and it will not end until Christ returns. So we must not be oblivious to that, and we must remember that. And again, if you're a Christian and you're on the side of the Satanists here, if you're supporting what the Satanists are supporting, ask yourself why.
Grace, I want to give you an example of that.
Sure.
The head of the National Abortion Federation is not a satanic priest or a Wiccan or a pagan. The head of the National Abortion Federation is the Very Reverend Dr. Catherine Hancock Ragsdale, an Episcopal priest and the president and CEO of the National Abortion Federation. So there are Christians, quote unquote, who not only support abortion, but who work every day.
Who champion it.
The National Abortion Federation is one of the not super significant, but national organizations advocating for abortion, and they are advocating for the killing of babies. They are finding common cause with the Satanists, and this woman who is a priest or possibly even a bishop in the Episcopal Church is on the side of the Satanists. And so, as Grace says, if you check yourself, okay,
yes,
if you are a Christian and you're like, oh yes, but a woman's right to choose is sacrosanct, look who's on your side.
Yes, and it is absolutely true that a Christian who supports abortion either doesn't understand what abortion is or they don't understand what Christianity is.
Absolutely, that's good.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Moses.
I just have to say, Grace is awesome. Grace has been fighting for life since she was a teenager, and she has worked in the pro-life sphere all that time. And she continues to do that. Follow her on Instagram.
Oh, wow, giving me a shout out.
Yeah, I'm giving you a shout out. Don't follow me on Instagram because I don't ever post on it.
I just posted a rant about Lyft giving money to supporting this new or going against this new Texas law, and they're going to fully cover any drivers that are sued under this law that are driving women to abortion things. I just did a rant on that. So, yeah, if you want to, you can follow me on Instagram. So, Moses, let's move on to our final topic before we close out. What's the Biden administration have to do with this? What's the Biden administration doing?
So the Biden administration, they're gonna try to interfere in the affairs of any state that tries to pass this law, and so the way that they're doing this right now. So we're talking about Attorney General Merrick Garland. And he, if you think back a few years, he was nominated to be on the Supreme Court, and he would be on the Supreme Court if Hillary Clinton had won the 2016 election. But events took a different course, and Joe Biden had nominated him to be his Attorney General. So now we have someone who, and he's revealing his true colors here, right? Like everyone thought he was a moderate when he was nominated for the Supreme Court. But now when it comes to abortion, we see he's playing his hand. So he's saying the Justice Department, which he heads, is urgently exploring all options to challenge Texas SB 8 in order to protect the constitutional rights of women and other persons, right? Because not only women can have an abortion.
Right, because, men and women can get pregnant.
Yeah.
Okay, mini rant.
Yeah.
When people say, no uterus, no opinion, I'm like, what? Because it's so ridiculous. Because then you're literally affirming women's bodily autonomy and saying only women have a uterus.
Yeah.
But then they turn around and at the other side of their mouth, they're saying, oh no, men and women can both have kids, and men and women both have uteruses, but if you're a man, you got to shut up about abortion because you don't have an opinion.
It's so fun.
Ridiculous.
It's so fun to watch from the sidelines as like these
kind of the world goes into chaos and explodes because they don't affirm fundamental truth.
When you
throw objective truth out the window, that's what happens. You say one thing and then you say another thing, and it's completely contradictory, and it's just like,
it's fun to watch. It's fun to sit back and watch from the sidelines as these crazy left-wing battle axe feminist types from
destroy their rights.
The old guard, and they're like, being a woman is something special. That's why we don't support the patriarchy, that type of thing.
Right,
and that's why abortion is necessary. It's given by God or whatever they say. And then the other side is like, being a woman is whatever I feel like it is.
Being a woman is a social construct.
Being a woman is a social construct, and moreover, trans men, that is to say, women who identify as men, can obviously in most cases get pregnant, and therefore you'll see people saying it's not just women who can get abortions.
Right.
In fact, here we have the Department of Justice of the United States of America saying women and other persons. Oh my gosh, it's horrifying. So what they're trying to do is saying, well, there's this federal law that prevents people from interfering with people who are trying to get into any type of medical facility. And so and honestly, it seems kind of weak to me. Like, they start by saying, we're looking at all options to challenge this bill, and then they say, and here's one thing. It's sort of like, okay, so you're kind of admitting that this thing is not a very strong way to challenge the Texas law. And there's this press release is literally 5 paragraphs. So there's nothing, there's not much there. But President Biden has come out and saying he's going to fight everything, the women's right to choose, blah, 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 blah. Such a about face from President Biden, who used to be one of the most moderate Democrats on abortion, who opposed taxpayer funding for abortion until about 5 minutes before he was elected.
Right.
Grace, we're coming for landing. We wanted to talk about the Texas law more on this show because it has had such huge implications. The pro-abortion lobby was definitely caught unawares by this. They were not expecting a law.
What a huge win for life.
They were not expecting a law to take effect. It is a huge win for life because there are literally babies who are going to be born now who were going to have their lives taken away from them in Texas by abortion providers who are now going to live to fight another day, and that's amazing.
Don't let anyone tell you that life isn't winning. Life is winning. Other states are following suit. Life is winning, life is precious, and we're going to keep on fighting for it because my generation is the pro-life generation, and we will abolish abortion in my lifetime. I strongly believe that.
Absolutely. And I didn't used to think that, and also I'm older than Grace, but I have come to believe that. I've come to be so hopeful about that, and I just ask that you'll work and pray with us to end it in Minnesota, not just in the country at large, but in Minnesota. We have a lot of work to do, so let's get to it. But before we close, I wanted to just... a couple of weeks ago, I wanted to just ask a fun question to close out our episode. I'm going to ask it again.
The Top Shelf with Grace Evans and Moses BRATRUD.
What book are you reading right now? Or books?
What book am I reading? Okay, a lot. Let me think of some non-school ones, because, for school I'm reading Paradise Lost by Milton. So,
cool.
Yeah, it's a good one. Rereading that. And then for fun, I'm still reading The Rise and Triumph of the Modern Self by Carl Trueman. It's a hefty book. but I love it. It's on the sexual revolution and how it even came about, and how objective truth and emotions came to have triumphed over objective truth. So subjectivity is triumphing over objectivity.
I really need to read that.
It's great. Yeah, so I'm about halfway through that. Really taking my time on it just because there's a lot of other things going on, but it's a great book. I'm not reading any fiction right now. Usually I'm reading fiction. I think it's start of the school year, junior year. How about you, Moses?
Yeah, I'm also juggling a bunch of books. I'm reading one that I just found, and I honestly, I can't believe it was written. It's a book called Why We Lost, A General's Inside Account of the Iraq and Afghanistan Wars by General Daniel P. Bolger, retired. And that is just absolutely blistering account of our horrifying failures in those two countries over the last 20 years as we approach the 20th anniversary of 9/11. And I'm also reading some great theology, Martin Chemnitz's Enchiridion on the Lord's Supper, and so that's been great. Shout out to our Lutheran listeners. He was a great theologian. And I'm also listening to a history of the Third Reich.
That's interesting.
Yeah, that's been great. So that's been my audiobook. And the Third Reich, they loved killing the unfit. It was a huge program. Before the Holocaust, the way they tested the gas chambers was by taking disabled children away from their families and ending their lives secretly. That was they kept that very secret. People didn't know about it, but that's what the Nazis did. That's one thing the Nazis did. They took children's rights away from them because they were disabled, and they took them away from their families, and they ended their lives. And we one other aspect we didn't even get to today of the furor over the Texas law is
so
people
sad.
being like, oh my gosh, now Down syndrome children will be born.
As if you have a disability, then that takes away from the image of God, or it takes away from your worth, because your worth is intrinsic. Your worth is something that people cannot take away from you. It's something that disability cannot take away from you. And it is so disgusting over the last week to see how the mainstream media has gone and dehumanized children with disability and children that are conceived in rape. Because over the last week, more so than ever, they are saying, if you are conceived in rape, or if you are a child who has disability, your life does not matter, and you should have been killed. That's what they're saying. And imagine how hard it would be, too, if you were a mother, and you chose life for your child, or you have a child that was diagnosed with Down syndrome, and you're currently in pregnancy. Imagine how cruel that is to tell a woman that you're carrying a child with Down syndrome, or you were raped, and guess what? Your child is worth nothing.
That is horrifying.
It's terrible.
People with Down syndrome have a voice. They have even addressed the United States Congress and said, I have a voice, I have a right to life, my life is beautiful, my life is worth living. And that is the power of people to stand up for themselves, for their own God-given, the fact that they also, along with us, bear the image of God, and their disability takes nothing away from that.
We have a blog post on that on the Family Beacon that I wrote a few years ago. And we'll have that linked.
Yeah, we'll have that linked in the show notes.
Yeah.
So on that note, we tried to end it on a light note, and then we got back into this incredibly important law and the incredibly important battle in this country right now between the forces who want to support the right to life, who want to support mothers in every stage of pregnancy and after birth. We aren't the conservatives who, you're only in favor of life until those kids are born.
Pro-life for all of life.
Pro-life for the whole life. That is what we support.
Again, one more little mini rant. The pro-choice movement does not get to define what it means to be pro-life, because being pro-life is the bare minimum for being pro-life. Like, if you do not support the right to life and the preborn taking their first breath, giving every child a chance to take his first breath, you cannot try to define what it means to be pro-life. So get off of your soapbox, pro-choicers who tell you that, you need to do this, this, and this, and if you don't do these things, and if you don't support these laws with immigration, then you're not pro-life. No, if you don't support protecting the most vulnerable in our society, cannot tell me what it means to be pro-life.
Preach it, Grace. I just, it's so we can go on, but we will call it a day today. Thank you so much for listening to the Family Beacon. As Grace said, make sure to give us 5 stars on Apple Podcasts. If you enjoy this, make sure to like, share, and subscribe on YouTube. I'm Moses BRATRUD here with Grace Evans for the Family Beacon from Minnesota Family Council. Get the facts, stand for truth. Thank you so much for watching.
Thanks for listening to or watching this episode of the Family Beacon podcast from Minnesota Family Council. Subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts so you're up to date on life, family, and religious freedom. You can follow us on Instagram at MN Family Council and subscribe to us on YouTube to watch our content. Get the facts, stand for truth.